Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about UK college and university traditions. So what we do for university and college in the UK that's maybe traditional or different to Austria. And very excitingly, we have some guests joining us today, one of which is about to enter the call. So, woo! So today we're joined by a special guest. This is our friend Ellie. So I'm pretty sure they all know by now that me and Olivia study at different unis. Olivia studies at Oxford, I study at Liverpool. So we decided to bring in some extra representation for maybe a different, so we've got a bit more of a rounded idea, because I don't think there's that many different traditions that I can think of for Liverpool. I know there is for Oxford. I don't know what it's like for you, but yeah. Ellie, introduce yourself to the students.
Okay, so my name's Ellie. I'm 21 years old and I'm from Bristol, but I study at Cardiff University and I study French and German translation.
Oh, I didn't know you did translation.
Which is in Wales.
Yeah, I know, Wales and translation. Yeah.
So you're representing an extra part of the nation. We're not just talking about England now. Yeah, we're really talking about the UK.
Yeah, I represent Wales. So Cardiff is the capital of the UK. Sorry, Cardiff is the capital of Wales.
Can you imagine? Well, to be
Cardiff's
fair, everyone thinks that London's our country and not just our capital city. So maybe Cardiff is. You never know. Yeah, I suppose you're probably the best person to start off, Liv, because I feel like you have the most interesting potentially contribution to this, because basically, so what we were just talking about before is in England there's a really big distinction, isn't it, between college and university. So college is so American. If you said college, there's two, they're really different in the UK. We do have colleges, but like they're more, the only people I know who go to colleges are people who are doing like certain art things like fashion, photography, or sometimes like cooking and that as well. People will go to do like a chef's, get their qualifications.
So colleges tend to be more vocational. So like to study for a particular job, like a particular profession, and I'm not sure, you get different kinds of qualifications from a college. Whereas say if you watch any American film, they'll always talk about going to college, and that's the equivalent of America. That's the equivalent of university. But that's the equivalent of university. So American college is like where lots of people choose to go on to after finishing school. But in the UK, college is like another option to university. University is more like you study a particular course, a particular subject area, and you get like a bachelor's degree, master's degree, etc. Whereas a college is like a particular qualification for like a particular job area, say like nursing.
So we all go to
care,
university.
Business, those kind of areas.
Yeah, and we all go to university.
We're all in our third years. Yeah, we're all in our third years of university.
Don't be fooled, because Liv goes to a college within a university.
Yeah, and so this is where mine is different. So the other meaning of like the word college is more like a traditional meaning of universities that can be broken down into colleges that are called collegiate universities. So it's quite an old-fashioned thing, and the only really remaining collegiate universities in the UK are Oxford, Cambridge and Durham.
It's like the more fancy ones, isn't it? It's the more traditional ones.
So yeah, it's a tradition thing from thousands of years ago.
Well, fancy, prestigious. It's like a prestigious thing.
8,000 years ago. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure where the tradition originally came from, but yeah, universities like Oxford, Cambridge and Durham are broken down into colleges. So you're a member of the university and you're a member of a specific college. There's a couple of other UK unis that have colleges as well, but it's that they don't really have much of a significance. So like there's the University of York has colleges, but it's just where you might live in first year. So you'll be at a particular college, but you won't really do much there, whereas the college.
I think Lancaster has them,
The only one I know of is York, because I visited there.
I don't know if like the ones
I had to go to an open day.
Yeah, I don't know if the ones in Lancaster are like, maybe Ellie, because I know you've been to an open day there as well. Maybe they have like certain, it's like accommodation things, and you apply to go to a certain one. I can't remember any of the names of them, but yeah, and they had like certain areas of campus that would be like for that group, and you would go to like certain bars and stuff. And you had to, like, each college had like a trade.
I was going to say, I think like at Lancaster, it was more just a way of dividing up the uni itself, whereas it sounds like at Oxford, it's more of like houses in schools.
Yeah,
It's more like
Yeah,
a
it is
family.
kind of like that.
Because am I right in thinking that when you apply to Oxford, you have to apply for a certain college?
Yeah, so this is why it's like the college is like is so important at somewhere like Oxford, because you apply to a specific college and that particular college might accept or reject
I was
you,
going to
or
say I'd hate that,
pass
you
you
know,
over to a
because
different college.
what if
So
you
can get
applied to
calls
your
and-
one and then like if you applied to Worcester and they were like, no, we don't want you, like you could have applied to like what's another one, like Lady Margaret or something.
Like
Lady
Hall,
Margaret Hall,
Yeah,
yeah.
you could have applied to that one and got in the same year. Like it's literally like, oh
Yeah.
no, this college doesn't want you, but doesn't mean the uni doesn't want you. Whereas in, you know,
Yeah.
in Liverpool, you just apply to the uni and then they'll go, okay, yes, no, we don't want
Yeah.
you. There's no
Yeah.
college.
Yeah.
Like you get interviewed at that particular the college that you apply to specifically, but it will often come down to like, so each college will take a certain number of students for each subject, and that will depend on what tutors they have associated with that college. So like my college happens to be a particular law college, which I didn't know of, so we have a lot of law students, but we only have 2 linguistics students in our year, because we don't have a linguistics tutor at the college. So like there's no point having 10 linguistics students at Worcester when there's no linguistics tutor. So like for the smaller subjects, when you apply, you're considered like as a whole group and then divided amongst the colleges.
Yeah.
I imagine it's like on something like Britain's Got Talent, when they've got all of the people that have auditioned and then they look at all of their pictures on a table and they're like, you're going here and you're going here.
Yeah.
Do you generally
think that
always,
the
everyone
fact-
ends up
Sorry, you go.
everyone always ends up super happy, like at the college that they end up at. It's one of those things that people really stress about when they apply, and everyone always ends up feeling like it's fated that you end up at whatever college you end up at, because yeah, you asked the question.
I think this is one of the myths that like I like learned about Cambridge and Oxford though, because Cambridge and Oxford, if you don't know, is like it's like the 2 most prestigious unis in England, right? Like everybody always makes a big fuss.
I was going to say not in the world, but I'm not going to blow my own trumpet.
It's like notoriously
Just
difficult to
carefully.
get into. Like there's a vigorous like interview process and stuff, but I think one thing that they're really good at, the people who interview you, is knowing like, because I know people who had A star, A star, A star, which is like literally you cannot get any cleverer than that, and were turned down. They were like, no, we don't want you, because they know whether you're going to fit into the environment or whether you're going to enjoy your time there. And I think if, you know, you're saying that people tend to be really happy in the colleges, I think the uni's really good at being like, yes, you will fit into this particular college or you won't.
That is also very, very true. Like as you're being interviewed, you're not just being interviewed like to study that particular course, that you're being interviewed for that college. And I think the tutors are very good, that they're like, we think you're a really great student, but we think you'd be a better fit at a different college, because different colleges have different vibes. They're all different ages, they're different sizes, they've got different specialities and stuff. So you know, there are colleges that are much more like smaller with like a more family feel. There are colleges that look more like you know, they're more like estates. There's ones that have like really like all the housing's really close together. There's other housing's really far apart. So like each college has a very, very different vibe. But picking a college is super difficult. I picked mine by sheer chance. It's the first one I happened to visit on an open day, and I was like, this is stunning. We'll go here.
I feel like
this
a
will
lot
be fine.
I've got 2 friends at Lady Margaret Hall, and they were like, we had no idea where we were going to apply. We literally just.
I think stuff like that can be really overwhelming though. Like the whole like application process in the UK is really hard, I think, and like overwhelming for unis anyway. You have to write so many different essays and apply to so many different places. You have to go on these things called open days, which is where like the university like invites you to come and look around the uni to see if you actually like it. And I think if I then had to research all these different colleges, going like, which one do I want to go to? Because you never know whether like, you know, if you apply to the wrong one and you hate your experience, it's like, maybe I don't hate Oxford, maybe I just hate this college. Like it's such a fine line. But would you say that like the fact that there's colleges, like how do you think that the college system has like affected your university experience?
I honestly, I can't work out why every single university doesn't have colleges. I think it's the best part of my university experience, because of going to university is so ridiculously daunting, because you go like, there's every university. I know Ellie, you said Cardiff's quite small, but like you're looking at 1,000 plus students in a year. And so like the way that joining Oxford felt was like, you joined your small community first, just at your college, and then all of your first Freshers Week stuff, which we'll talk about later, is done within your college. And like there's a college is like it's a massive family. Like you have.
This is an interesting point. This is another like tradition. I don't have this at Liverpool. I don't know any other uni that does it. Maybe Cardiff does. I don't know. At Oxford, you have families, right? So like you have,
I think it's another
a
part
college
of the college
mum
system.
and a college dad, a college
No, you
daughter.
don't.
Yeah, so
No,
I think it's another part. I think it's another part of the college system, because I know that my friend at Durham does it, and that's also collegiate. But say it's this idea that you're joining a family, so that you have a college family. So in your first year, you can get college married. It's not.
I was going to say, I remember.
You just find your friend and they're like, let's be college married.
So
and
I had a friend who my school was not like a fancy school, grammar school, anything. It was just a public school, and on average we had maximum one person got into Cambridge or Oxford out of the however many thousand people were there, because we're known for being like, it was called an aspiring school, where we got like special treatment going into unis that could say like, you don't need as high grades because we know you're from an aspiring school, don't worry. And she managed to get into doing medicine at Cambridge, which I'm like, that is like one of the like hardest degrees to get into. And I remember her posting pictures and being like, oh, this is my college husband, he's just proposed to me. And, you know, I was just like stood there like, what on earth is going on? Am I getting married?
I've never heard of that in my life. And we weren't an aspiring school. Our school generally had 6 or 7 students go to Oxford a year, even though we're a comprehensive school. And in all of my friends that have gone, I have never ever heard of that.
It's such a big thing. I'm impressed I've never spoken about it.
Maybe your friends just didn't get married.
People.
Maybe.
I actually got 2 things that would come up into, as we just mentioned. The phrase public school, quite confusingly, actually refers to an extreme private school. So just I'm thinking when students learn about the school system, even though public school should mean, you know, a school available to the public, it actually means an extreme private school. It makes no sense. And the phrase Oxbridge is how you refer to Oxford and Cambridge like as a 2, because like their application process is like the same.
Interestingly, you can't apply to both, can you?
And you can't apply to both, which is something that I never knew until I was applying. But you have to apply to just the one, and I don't know why.
Also, don't you have, I remember like, because so many people applied to Oxbridge in my year, and as I said, only 6 or 7 got in. I remember there was like 35 students who would have to go and do a special different exam.
You have to do a special
part of the application process.
Apparently,
so once you've actually
exam they've ever done, where they were asking bizarre questions.
Once you've submitted your UCAS application, which is the general university application that everyone in the UK who wants to go to university has to fill out, just for Oxford and Cambridge. And if you're doing medicine at any university, you have to do it earlier than everyone else. And then the first thing you have to do for Oxford and Cambridge is these different aptitude tests. So I did the modern languages aptitude test, and generally they're weird because they're not testing your specific knowledge, because they're like, everyone might have learned different things, like this is not the time to be testing exact like facts and figures. They're to test your ability to approach questions, for example. So if you do any humanities subject, your aptitude test is going to be like, here's a piece of information, and then it will give you statements and say, do these agree or disagree? Was this in the text? Which of these is the best summary? They're really like, it's mind games type questions, because I remember doing one, my languages one was completely different, but I did one of these like as just a tester, and every single question you'd be like, I feel like all of these answers are correct and I don't know which one's actually correct. So it's meant to like test the way that you think, and the way that you answer questions. So I can understand why your friends are like, it's the weirdest tests I've ever done.
Maybe this is why
a test, it's like this weird other thing.
Maybe this is the whole thing about the process, the fact that they're like know so well if you're going to fit in or not.
That's what I was going to add to, basically, and say that some of my friends who were like 3A stars, you would have thought would have, you know, literally walked into Oxbridge, didn't even pass the aptitude test. And then there were some really random people who passed the aptitude test and ended up going to Oxbridge, even though they weren't 3A star students. They were, you know, the people who you assume are going to get into Oxbridge don't always.
And that definitely always happens. And it's weird that, like, I mean, I now having come out the other side of it, like I don't know how, I don't quite fully understand their process, but I think it works. I think it does somehow find out, like, even if you don't know whether you're right for it or not, somehow this weird long drawn out process filters through and finds sort of like the and say sometimes quite surprisingly people that like didn't necessarily think their grades were going to be good enough, but they really impressed to interview. And I know it's not possible for every possible university student at every university to do interviews, but I think the interviews, as terrifying as they were so helpful, because otherwise you're just a bit of paper. And as you say, so many people have very similar grades because, you know, you're applying to do the subject that you're best at. So you're probably comparing lots of people that have straight A's or straight A stars. And then we have to write a personal statement, which is 1,000 characters, so not words, like letters and spaces, explaining why it is you want to go to that university and study that. This is for all universities. And 1,000 characters is not very long to actually try and like sell yourself. So I think if possible, I feel like all universities should do interview processes, because like to actually get to meet people and talk to them and actually like find out how they work as a person, you know, how what they're like to work with.
I fully avoided applying to universities where they were going to give me an interview, because I'd heard people saying like, oh, you know, if you study a language, they get you to speak in the language in your interview. And I was like, nah. No.
Well, I did the same thing. So I just ended up applying for the universities that I wanted to go to, but I ended up having 2 interviews at Bath and Leeds. And they were fine, but I was not expecting to be asked to have an interview. And my other universities, so because I didn't actually apply to Cardiff to start off with, I got into Cardiff through clearing because, as I said, I went to Bath and then I changed. But Exeter, Lancaster, and Birmingham, I think, was my final uni. None of them wanted interviews.
Yeah.
But yeah, for some reason, like Leeds and Bath did.
Yeah. Also, just for context, I feel like we should explain clearing. So clearing is you go through this UCAS process, and you apply to universities, and what happens is on the day that you get your A-level results, which is like the exam you need to get into uni, if you have not got the grades that the university asks for, you can do this thing called clearing, which is basically asking other universities if they will have you because of the grades that you have. That's basically what it is. But I think
it's just matching up all the available spaces left at every single university and all of the students that didn't get their first choice university and trying to merge them.
But I think
I used clearing slightly strangely because I went to a university and then I changed my mind last minute. So then I used these leftover places that were meant for these students who didn't match their grades, and I sort of slotted in at Cardiff. But yeah, clearing, and there's also adjustment as well. So if you get grades higher than what you were expecting, you can then go to a better university. Because that was another one of my options. But because Cardiff's entry grades were lower than Bath's, I ended up going through clearing. But if I went from Bath to Oxford, then that would have been adjustment.
And
it's really confusing.
It's one of those mystical processes that it happens, and I don't understand how it happens, but it all clearing and adjustment happens in like a week. I don't know how it runs, but it does.
You know what used to upset me about clearing? I mean, I didn't have to go through clearing, but one thing that really annoys me, so on results day you'll get your exam results at like maybe 9 in the morning, and clearing opens at 10, so you get a bunch of panicked, upset teenagers who didn't get the grades, didn't go to the uni, who then just go, what have you got? I'll have anything, because in the UK it's very much like you go to university. So, you know, I know people who applied to do like dentistry and then didn't get in, so would ring clearing and then ended up on my German course, and you're like, how do you go from dentistry to German? So you get people just like so desperate to go to uni that they'll do anything, rather than, I always thought it would be better to say, okay, results day is this day, clearing will open tomorrow, have the day to have time to think about what you want to do when you're not like in the middle of like panic and like upset, like have some time to logically think, do I want to go to uni if I can't do the thing that I want to do?
It's also
I feel like clearing should actually like advertise all the places that they have and say give people like a day or two to think, instead of it all happening in the moment.
Because it's first come first served. Because I remember, because I was going to go to Exeter and I was like, oh, can I come, can I get back to you on this. And they were like, but to be honest, we probably won't have any places in a couple of hours, so if you want to come here, you need to let us know right now on the phone. Which was crazy. And as you say, it opens at like 10 or 9:30 or something, so everyone's manically ringing these universities to get onto any course,
and it's just sometimes not worth it. But I think one thing we'd definitely have to talk about, because I didn't realize this was a big thing. So obviously in England, we're very much known for being drinkers. We like a good drink in the UK. And it was that Freshers Week is not a thing that's universal, it's an English thing. And that blows my mind.
Because when I went to Canada and I was talking about Freshers Week, because I lived in Canada for just under a year, and I was talking about Freshers Week, and no one had any idea what I was talking about. They have Freshers Week in the sense that you go and you have like introductory lectures and you are shown around the campus. But I think Freshers Week in the UK is very, very different, and it's more, well, it's all just drinking.
Yeah. So basically, if you are a fresher, the name fresher, it just refers typically to somebody who's new to something at university. So I know that for like sports things, you're a fresher if it's your first year in that sport, regardless of if you're like a final year university student. If it's your first year at the sports club, you are a fresher. So if, for example, your first year of university, you are a fresher, and it's called Freshers Week. And it's basically a week where you go out there's no lessons, there's no lectures, there's no teaching that week. It's a week for you to settle into university and to get to know the people that you're living with, or the people on your course, for example. You just go out basically and drink for 7 days in a row. That's it. It's crazy, right?
And that's not even an exaggeration. I remember, because I don't really drink that much, or I didn't in first year, and it was genuinely drink all through the night, sleep during the day, and then do it all the next night. It's really unhealthy, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this is where freshers flu then comes from. Well, freshers flu is also just because you're suddenly in a new place and you're with loads of people.
Did you get freshers flu?
I get freshers flu not from Freshers Week, but I get freshers flu every time I go back to uni.
You got mumps?
You got mumps?
Yeah, I got mumps during Freshers. Well, not Freshers Week first year, Freshers Week second year. Where I actually did start drinking, and I started like going out loads, and I had a crazy Freshers Week. And I am vaccinated for mumps, but you know, there's a strain around universities that is resistant to the vaccine. And it's got an incubation period of a month. So you don't know you have it until like a month after you caught it. And I caught it off, I think I either caught it off my flatmate's boyfriend or during Freshers Week. Like it never really got traced. But it's really common for mumps outbreaks to happen, you know, like in November, a month after Freshers Week, because you're just mixing with so many people and it's really contagious.
And it's obviously very common for people to go out drinking, sharing the drinks, and then going home with people, and you know, you kind of like, you're very close contact with a lot of different people, doing a lot of different shots and all sorts. So you know, when you're drunk, you have less inhibitions and stuff. So you know, you're around so many people in such short space of time. I genuinely got it so bad, I thought I had meningitis. Like I genuinely
meningitis is a serious thing though that does go around during Freshers Week as well.
Because a lot of people say like, is it Freshers flu or have you got meningitis? Like the symptoms are the same, you need to be really careful. And I had it so bad, like if I was walking, like my body, like my bones were like aching when I walked and stuff, and I'd never had it before, and I was just walking around like I'm in so much pain, and I don't know, because everyone was saying to me, because in England they always say before you go to university you should get a meningitis vaccination, and I'd never heard of this before. So I rang the doctors to ask them about it, and he was like, oh, have you had the vaccination? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And he went, well, you would know because you should have had it before you came. And I was like, well, I haven't had a vaccine for years, so I know I haven't had it. So that's when I was like, I should maybe go to the doctors, because what if I actually have meningitis now? Like, a bit dangerous. But what was your guys' experience for Freshers Week like? Like, did you have a good, because everybody says, don't they, they're like, Freshers Week's going to be the best week of your life.
Oh, it wasn't the best week.
No.
It was, as I said, first year I was really overwhelmed. So I lived in Canada for a year. I hadn't drunk for about a year, because Kenya then Canada, I just wasn't, it was just different. So I hadn't drunk for like a year, and I thought university was going to be super academic, and I was really ready to be like you know, like a complete nerd. And then suddenly people were like drinking all night, doing nothing during the day, and I was like, what is this? I felt so out of, like a fish out of water. I did not feel like I fitted in at all. So first year I hated it. And then second year, the other reason why I hated freshers first year is the initiations, the sports initiations, which again, like just really briefly, is where sometimes when you try and join a sports club, you have to do initiations to be allowed onto the team, and initiations are really horrible things. So I don't know, do you guys have examples of initiations? I mean, I heard some horrendous.
I've not done any, but I know
I've heard of it. Yeah, they're very notorious. Like I think at Newcastle Uni, obviously I'm from Newcastle, at Newcastle Uni, there's a couple of my friends there, and one of them was saying that initiations are now banned at Newcastle sporting things because somebody died from them. Like they drank so much that they had like some sort of like, was it like a cardiac arrest or something? Like there was something like happened to them, they fell off something, I don't know, they died, because basically these initiations are just to kind of like, I don't know where it comes from. It's very American.
I was going to say, if you've seen any American film where you have sororities at college, they will always have initiations.
Basically, here is an entire bottle of vodka, down it now. And like vodka, you don't need a bottle.
I remember there was one where like I had a friend and they had to drink as well, but they also had to like eat a raw fish and then down a cup of cream.
Or they'll get you to like one of my friends, he had to do an initiation where they had to go out on a night out in nothing but a nappy. So a diaper, if you know the American word, like it's what a baby wears. So he had to go into the shop, buy adult nappies, and then go out on a night out in the middle of winter in England in a nappy. Like so bizarre. So yeah, definitely.
And I mean, I would say I feel like at least now the majority of initiations are like optional because of the fact that they're really, really bad.
I think to be fair though, even though they are optional, I think even though they are optional though, I think there's a big like, Ellie's disappeared in the window. There's a big like thing of like, if you don't do them, like the people would like look at you and be a bit like,
yeah, but it's one of those like peer pressure things, and that's why obviously I think a lot of universities are quite tough on them, obviously, because you end up with lots of rather impressionable freshers doing things that they really don't want to do simply because older students are telling them to. So you know, it's definitely like all of the ones that I know of were pretty much optional, but lots of people obviously still did them because they wanted to take part.
I mean, there's even worse ones than the drinking ones as well. I mean, if you really want to know some, we're not going to tell you because they're a bit grim, but you can Google like English sports, university sports initiations, and things will come up, like the Newcastle one and stuff. But people can do like really, I don't know how people got away with doing them when they first came out and stuff.
Some of them are damn right illegal. Some of them was verging on like sexual assault. Like it got to a point where some of them were so bad that they've got banned. And we had a similar thing at Cardiff where they're technically banned, and now they call them something like welcome events or something. And they're just initiations, but they're just different things,
just wrapped up with a pretty bow on the top,
basically. But
that's not to say you can't play sports at university. You can very easily do sports.
To be fair though, I think
you can avoid initiations, but like, I mean, this is something like a separate part of Freshers Week.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that you kind of started talking about, Ellie, and I was going to bring it up before. I feel like one thing about English universities is that there is this like stereotype and culture that we don't take it seriously. Like if you go to an English university, for example, like because of all this drinking culture and stuff, it's very common to see memes of the fact that it's like, I'm a student, it's the day before the deadline, I've got 5,000 words to write, I haven't done anything because I've been out drinking. Like you don't, there's a very small selection, I would say, of people who actually sit down and really do study all the time and really do work for the degree, I think
also, like, again, as I said, like I am a massive nerd, and I was expecting to go to university and just study and obviously meet friends, but I was not expecting the drinking culture. But then having spoken to my parents, they were like, yeah, obviously it's about the academic part, but it's also about growing up. I think a lot of people see it as a chance to just move away from home, basically.
You do gain such a new level of independence that you don't even realise, because obviously this is why for the first time and you're cooking for the first time, and any issues that then come up, because typically in England I mean, obviously we are three examples. Liv, you're maybe slightly less of an example of it because you're still in the same sort of region, but obviously I'm from Newcastle, but I study in Liverpool. It's completely different cities, 3 hours away. You from Bristol go to Cardiff. I don't know how long that is away, a couple of hours.
Country, but it's like an hour.
Okay, but still different region,
yeah.
and you don't study in Essex.
So Oxford's also
it's
like
not
2.5 hours away.
Yeah, and it's not common.
You're further than me.
Yeah, it's not common to go to the university in your city or town. A lot of people do, but a lot of people don't, and that's why it's a good experience, because if there's any problems, you then have to deal with them as an adult, and you don't have your parents there as like a safety net, I suppose.
And I also think it's quite specific. Oh, sorry, I'll just button this.
Fine,
I think it's quite different in the UK that people study just subjects that they like. I think in other countries there's still quite a pressure that you go to university to study something that you then specifically need for your career plans, but most people go to university without a specific career plan, unless you're planning on being a doctor, in which case you should probably study medicine.
Probably.
But most people study just like the subject that they like the most, and they want to study more because most jobs will require a degree, but not in a particular area, just a university.
Because you learn these things called transferable skills, which is just like a skill that you can use in any context.
So definitely, I think from my point of view, university is way more about
it's more casual.
It's more about what you learn from being at university as opposed to what you learn in your specific subject in your degree, unless obviously you're studying law to be a lawyer or medicine to be a doctor.
100%.
But any more like just subject based, unless you're going to use it, the actual information you learn isn't important. It's what you learn like as a person in those 3 or 4 years.
But I've had a timer saying we've got 5 minutes left, and I think to end off it's really important, because I know Liverpool doesn't really have any specific traditions, but because you're from a very prestigious place, I think you need to talk about your matriculation before time runs out. You're going to have to summarise, you're going to have to be brief.
5 minutes, what's matriculation? I was going to say, so Freshers Week at Oxford is quite different. A lot of Freshers Week is optional, so it's more like you can do, they have all the various nights out planned, but there's also far more just like during the day stuff, because most people get their work set in Freshers Week and they simply they have to spend the whole of the first week working. So Freshers Week there's definitely not as many stories of like people being like blackout drunk in Oxford. Obviously lots of people still do like a more stereotypical Freshers Week, but then at the end of your first week you have what's called matriculation, which is this really traditional ceremony at the university, and I think they do it at Cambridge and Durham as well, so it's like the 3 more like traditional universities in the UK, and it's this ceremony that every single student has to take part in order to become an official member of the university. So it doesn't mean anything, like you don't get any like certificate that says that you've done it. You just have to do it. It's simply tradition. Gotta
wear your fancy robe and your little.
I was gonna say, is this where you wear the bow thing?
So I mean, Oxford and Cambridge, and again I think at Durham, you technically have a uniform, but you only have to wear it for matriculation and then your exams. So the uniform.
You wear that robe for your exams?
Oh no.
I go to exams in leggings or joggers or something.
So you have to be in it for exams. So people have to do it for online exams as well. That was a bit much. But
wow.
So the Oxford one, it's all like black and white. So it's basically just like smart dress, like white shirt, black suit, and then you have gowns. You have a certain type of gown when you start the university, and then if you're a scholar in a particular subject, you get a different kind of gown, and those might change.
Do you have a separate, because I know when we graduate so we don't have colleges, we have schools where it's like, so my school is the School of Histories, Cultures and Languages, and there's like the engineering school, for example, or so any like graduations and stuff, each school has their own colour. So my gown has a pink band around it. Do you have that as well?
No, we don't have any. Actually ours is sort of similar. We're the School of Modern Languages and ours is red, I think. Then I don't know if that's because it's Cardiff. I'm not sure.
I'm not something I've looked into, but I think that the gowns that you have just as part of your uniform are then different to what you'd have to wear for graduation. At Oxford, that's again a different kind of gown. But so this matriculation day, everyone has to wear their outfit, and then say you have ties. So either just like a straight like black tie, like a suit tie, or we have like ribbon bows and things. And then you have to have your mortarboard as well, which is the cap that you wear for graduation, but you're not allowed to wear it. You cannot put it on your head unless you are graduating. So you just have to hold it.
Did you never just think, I'm just going to put it on? I'm just going to do it.
You theoretically, if you get caught, there's a huge fine for it, but I think that's just a myth.
Wow.
I think that's just to like scare people. So I use mine as a handbag. But yeah, so it's a really crazy day in Oxford because loads of tourists come, because there are literally thousands of students walking around the university dressed the same.
We'll have less than a minute.
Well, we've technically got 2 minutes. We'll be all right. I'll be quick.
Okay, I was going to say, I was like,
but yeah, you have to go through this. There's this old theatre in the middle of the town, and every new student to the university has to you go in sessions. You go into this theatre. You have this really short official ceremony with all the heads of the university. They say a lot in Latin. Everyone just kind of nods. Nothing it's just a few speeches really, and then you leave, and then you're officially part of the university. So like I said, nothing happened. You don't get
sort of
given
an initiation,
anything.
really, isn't it?
It is like an initiation, but you just have to attend this ceremony essentially, and then everyone just spends the afternoon because it's the end of Freshers Week before then work officially starts. It's almost like your last day of freedom. So everyone spends it just relaxing, drinking normally.
Love that.
So it's really weird that you'll just see all these students in the drinks aisle of Tesco's in their gowns,
trying to get stuff.
It's crazy, but it's really nice day. And obviously everyone's taking pictures outside all the famous landmarks in their outfits, because it's the only time outside of exams that they'll wear that outfit. And it's quite fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's matriculation.
Well, on that note, just because I'm very paranoid it's going to cut us off, thanks so much for everyone for listening, and thanks very much for Ellie for coming on and chatting with us. Usually they just listen to us, so hopefully it's a new accent and a new experience as well.